Great careers are not accidents, they're journeys built through clarity and intent. In every industry, there are such journeys that reveal true leadership, sacrifice, risk, and purpose. I'm Dirk, and this is The Pitch and the Catch, where we dive into choices, changes, and the careers they create. Welcome. Today, we welcome a true leader in the food industry named Brian Fox, currently CEO of Miniat Holdings, LLC. Over his 3-decade journey, Brian's been behind the scenes of endless products and partnerships which shape the way we experience food every day. You have ever enjoyed that caramel drizzle on your Starbucks frap? Chances are, Brian had a little something to do with it. Brian brings a melting pot of leadership experience, innovation, and passion for driving growth and excellence. Before joining Miniat as the company's first non-family CEO, he led Richelieu Foods, a premier manufacturer of private branded food products, and served as CEO of Zentis North America, part of a 125-year-old global family business specializing in fruit processing and ingredient solutions. But more on this to come. With deep experience across retail, food service, and contract manufacturing, Brian has built a reputation for transforming businesses and developing high-performing teams, always with a keen eye toward innovation and purpose. Brian, to me, is a great friend of many years, and I'm very excited to have him on the show today. Welcome to The Pitch and the Catch, Brian. It's an honor.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the very kind introduction. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Brian, as I said in the brief, we have a wonderful first question for you. How many people's plates have you filled with food over the course of your career?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
That one's impossible to answer, honestly, Dirk.
I figured.
I would say it's hundreds of millions of plates between all the places that I've worked and categories that I've worked in, whether it was cereal or cheese or meat or frozen pizza. I mean, it's a lot of plates. Probably more plates have been filled with food at places that I work than we have people in the U.S.
Yeah, I can imagine. Over 30 years, that it adds up.
It does add up. Yes.
It does add up. Amazing. What we always try to do on the pitch and the catch, we'll get to all the leadership stuff and the organization stuff, which is what excites us and why we're here and where we're looking for the catch. But I always find it enlightening, and also for the listener and viewer, to make that connection to their real lives. And I think in your case, we can perfectly do that. So, I mean, I remember in your last job, I was in the area able to visit, and we just took one of the frozen pizzas off the belt, which is being sold in a major retail chain. How does it feel like to walk through a grocery store and know you had your hands in that
Yeah.
product?
Look, I think it's incredibly gratifying, and I absolutely love with every fiber of my being the fact that places where I've worked, we've helped put food on people's plates.
Yes.
And by the way, trying to do that in a very affordable way.
Yes.
So, a lot of my career has been spent on the private label side. And as you know, private label and branded private label is generally less expensive. And
Yes.
so I kind of look at that and go, hey, we've helped a lot of people eat well. And there's just something gratifying about it. I mean, yes, everybody has to eat. It's a little bit of a recession resistant industry. I won't say recession proof, it's recession resistant because people do change how and what they buy depending on what their economic situation is. But I take a lot of pride. I love seeing helping make great products and put it on people's plates so that they can enjoy it, whether at a restaurant or at home. It's fun. I mean, it's fun. And the consumer's always changing. So we have to try to change with where the consumer is changing so that we're making products that resonate.
Yes. Of the many amazing moments you and I had, you know what my funniest moment was that I always quote to other people?
You've told me before, Dirk, but I forget what it was. So you have to tell me again.
So it's like we're in your pizza factory, and there's this special line that makes those pizzas that come to the shop as thawed. So basically as it feels like they're never frozen, but they're
Yeah.
frozen in your shop.
Yes.
And I'm looking at you, and I think there was some disappointment on my face. It was like, "We thought these were always fresh. Now I can see they're frozen." And you looked at me, you laughed, and you said, "It's marketing, baby."
Yeah, there's truth to that. At Richelieu, we had a sister company in the UK, and I theirs truly stays refrigerated all the
Yes,
way through. But think about it. It's much easier to get all the way north to south, east to west in the UK than it is here in the US.
it is.
So while it works for them in that country, it doesn't work for us in the US. The distribution chains are just too long to make it work, and the shelf life is too short. But yeah, so it is like a lot of things, a lot of things in life, it is marketing.
I don't want to make this an advertising platform for frozen pizza, but after I've seen how it is being produced in that factory, I mean, it's a factory technically. It's not
Hmm.
it's not a pizza baker's place. The dough is made in a machine that's the size of a residential house.
Yeah.
You've worked with basically the components that we find in the supermarket, like the flour, the mozzarella cheese, and everything. So I never touched frozen pizza in the last 20 years, but I do have to say, after I saw how it's being made, I'm more comfortable eating it now, which is
Yeah.
kind of weird.
It's funny. I would say one of the things or a couple of the things that I've learned, and I'll kind of pull this thread for just a moment, which is
Please.
what we do is we're a giant kitchen in the food space. We're trying to do things the same way you would do it at home, only we're doing it at scale. We're not making a pizza for dinner tonight from scratch. We're trying to make 1 million or 2 million pizzas a week and do that effectively. The same thing here at Miniat in the meats and cooked meat space. We're cooking meat low and slow, just like you would cook at home. The food industry, especially large food companies at scale, get a bad rap for saying, "Oh, it's big food, it's big food." No, again, we're just a kitchen at scale. Every product meeting that I've ever been in, people are talking about, how do I make it better?
Yes.
How do I do this? How do I accomplish that? How do we get salt out or sugar out or fat out? How do we try to make it better? But also with this balance of, I've got to make it affordable too.
Yes.
So there are certain things that you can do to make a higher quality product, but it goes against the affordability portion of it. And so what does our customer really, really want? Well, they want as good as they can get, as affordably as they can get. And
Yes.
I think the American food industry has done an incredible job of doing that for the last 100 years. We're balancing that trade-off between affordability and higher quality all the time. And there are certain customers that are care more about the affordability side, and there are certain customers that care more about the quality side. And look, that's what you have to do. You have to let the consumer vote with their wallet on the things that are most important for them. And I think the American food industry as a whole does a better job of that than a lot of people give us credit for.
Yeah. And just to add, so I grew up in the pharmaceutical industry, and if an industry has a bad rep, it's the pharmaceutical industry. And there's all these theories about malicious behavior and this thing. I've been in the bowels of this industry for 15
Mhm.
years. I can vouch for everyone in this industry. Everybody I know wants to save lives. That
Yeah.
sounds a little bit weird from the outside, but people get up in the morning to make better drugs to make people healthy. That's a fact in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mhm.
Then, of course, there are businesses. And this is, I don't want to get this too political, but if a country like the United States doesn't regulate prices, of course, a business would ask for the prices they could potentially hope to achieve in the market.
Yeah.
Right. So, of course, businesses are here to optimize themselves and they'll say, oh, no, we shouldn't charge too much for it because it would be bad for society. What business does that?
Mhm.
So, if you want the prices come down, you need to regulate, but it's a different story. Brian, it's a perfect segue. So, for example, you worked in pasta and then you were hit, and we have the famous story, hit by the Atkins diet, and then nobody wanted to have carbs and you needed a pivot. Then you were in Greek yogurt adjacent, and
Mhm,
everybody got their protein from Greek yogurt. And then all of a sudden they realized, oh, I'm getting some downsides from Greek yogurt. I get my protein from somewhere else. So
mhm.
this pivoting in the food industry seems to be like a regular process. What I'd be curious in, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what I learned, and you can talk to this now with Ozempic and Wegovy, people live healthier lifestyles. It seems that especially the snack industry has to pivot because
Mhm.
people seem to be to eat differently. Is this one of the bigger challenges of the food industry at the moment, or from your perspective, what you're seeing is where's the next big pivot?
Yeah, and thank you for reminding me of that because there's actually one before that one too. I was in the cheese industry when the fat crate,
Yeah,
all fat is bad.
all fat is bad.
All fat is bad. And then in the pasta industry when all carbs are bad. Yeah, it absolutely is one of the unique things about food is that certain things become fads and certain things become trends.
Yes,
And, a fad typically runs itself in and out in 18 to 24 months. A trend will, run for a much longer period of time, many years in some cases on those things. It is hard to do that. It is hard to try to predict where those things are going. You have to continually be on the lookout in the press, in the news, what is happening with consumers to try to
yes,
figure out what becomes the next point of concern. So it is a constant challenge to do that. There's no easy answer to it. And then how you adapt to it. So yeah, the the thing that's going on with Ozempic and those GLP-1 inhibitors, I think is starting to slowly turn the food industry on its ear a little bit.
yeah.
I was just at I'm a member of the Chicago Economic Club, and we had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the presenters of that meeting was the CEO of Eli Lilly. And so there was a fair amount of conversation around GLP-1s, and he said, one of the reasons that the GLP-1 is expensive today is the way that we deliver it. So, they have this shot thing that, you have to put in your hip or whatever, and you do this, you give a shot. He's like, that's an expensive delivery method.
It is
I have to I have to get paid for that delivery method. So what are they doing? They're working on pill delivery methods, which are
oral.
infinitely cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, oral methods that are infinitely cheaper than what you have to do today. And I do believe when those oral methods get approved and hit the market sometime in 2026. I think that slow of 5 to 10% of the population that's on GLP-1s will probably pivot to a larger percentage because I also think that will change how healthcare coverage, which is denied in many cases for GLP-1s because of the
Yes.
cost, will now become, wait a minute, I can afford to cover a GLP-1 alternative on our healthcare plans to allow people to get healthier. Because at the end of the day, healthier people cost less over time for insurers than unhealthier people. And I do believe that they're seeing some positive cascading out of the health benefits of GLP-1s. I still don't think that we know all the negative sides of it yet because I still think it's early. And that's one of the things that happens in these trends, Dirk, whether it's the fat trend or the carb trend or the, no sugar trend. Sometimes it takes time for the science to catch up and
Yes.
for us to
Yes.
learn, okay, here are, you know, all these producers do a lot of studies to try to validate and understand
Their
what,
own point. Yeah.
yeah, from their own perspective, what's going
Yeah.
to happen. But sometimes you don't really know until it's been in the market 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And you kind of start saying, well, wait a minute, all fat is not bad. Your body needs fats.
Yes.
Wait a minute, all carbs are not bad. Maybe, we can't exist on a diet of corn chips and mashed potatoes. We got to get some other things in there. And that is absolutely hitting in the food industry right now. Today, the business that we're in here is on the protein side, and protein has had an incredible run for the last 18 months.
Protein is so popular at the
Yeah,
moment. It feels
and
like even coffee has protein now.
yeah, exactly. Everything has got protein in it now, and we're in the protein space, so that
Yes.
continues to look good for us for the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
But is there going to be another thing that comes after that that goes, wait a minute, you can't have these, we can't have protein in every single thing that we do,
No.
guys. You need to moderate yourself, and at the end of the day, I think that's the real lesson to learn over 35 years, is that everything is good in moderation.
Yes. Yes.
You just have to be that person that takes the responsibility for being the moderator in your life.
Yeah. And with everything that was there before, and I think we already know protein also is not the ultimate answer to all our problems. It's
Correct.
what we focus on now. And it's all about balance. Yes. So you worked in a private label brand, which is one of the most contested spaces in the store, which is pasta.
Yes.
So, what is the distinct leadership challenge or managerial challenge if you run a private label product as opposed to a product as a brand name?
Yeah, I would say the challenges are really very different. In private label, you have to be able to embrace and work with extreme complexity. So I was at a pasta company. I was there for 14 years. We made over 2,000 SKUs and probably 50 different labels. Well, guess what? 2,000 SKUs, 50 different labels, 50 different retailer customers shipping all over the US. How do you forecast that? How do you demand plan it? How do you produce that? How do you inventory that? All that is an exceptionally high level of complexity compared to the large national brand, Barilla. So Barilla probably has 50 items that they sell across that same marketplace that we sold 2,000 plus items. So you have to be able to understand and manage and operate well in an extremely complex supply and demand environment, much more so than a brand. Second is, I like to say, you have two sales. So you have to sell the consumer. The consumer has to like your product. You can make a cheap product, but if the consumer doesn't take it away off the shelf, you're screwed. So your first customer is the retailer, and your second customer is the consumer.
Yes.
So you have two sales in that process. Whereas a brand, if I were Barilla, and by the way, I've talked to people over there, they did an excellent job penetrating the US market and creating their leading share, but they talked to the consumer. That
Yes.
was their yes, they have to talk to the retailer to get it on the shelf, but that's not really who is driving their category. The consumer is who's driving their category. And those guys did an amazing job over 30 or 40 years of getting the consumer hooked on, what the Barilla brand means to them. You know, while they're still the largest single private brand, I are still the largest brand in pasta. Sorry, misspoke. I think private label still has the number one share.
Yes.
I think private label in the pasta category is in the 50 plus share range because it's not a high differentiation category.
See, I always, maybe that's just me, but it's a mind game. So if I know I just put Barilla into the boiling water,
Hmm.
I'm like, maybe there's the benefit of the doubt. Even maybe if I overcooked it or something, I blame myself because it's a Barilla product. If
Hmm.
I just bought a private label pasta somewhere else, I blame it on the pasta
Yeah.
because, oh, I saved money. That wasn't good. So is that, so and I think this is something you need to overcome. If you offer a private label brand, you need to have a very good quality product.
Yeah, you do. And I would say the quality of product that you get in private label over the last 20 years is far exceeds what it was 25 years ago. And I would say even in the last 10 years, it's continued to get better because the consumer is smarter. Again, one of those things about social media, so I'll flip it back in the other direction a little bit as it relates to private label, you've got a lot of influencers out there that buy private label and go, "This is a great product, and I saved $1 versus the brand, or I saved $2 versus this, or whatever. You should give this a try." So, there are obviously aspects of social media that has worked to the benefit of private label and to the detriment of brand. And frankly, it's to the benefit of the consumer's wallet in the long run. And that's why, you have certain retailers that are basically a private label retailer.
Trader Joe's.
Yeah. Trader Joe's, basically a private label retailer. Aldi, basically a private label retailer. Walmart doesn't disclose exactly what their percentage of private label is, but I think it's in 25 to 30% of their uh, volume is sold on a private label perspective. So it's a really high share there too, but sometimes people don't always think about it that.
Yeah. Um, Interesting. Brian, over to you a little bit. Let me pivot a little bit. I remember when we got to know each other. So you're back. So you were the CEO of Zentis, and during the course of your career, you've moved from sales and category roles into the CEO position.
Hmm.
What was the point when you realized you were actually ready to lead an entire enterprise?
Well, that's a great question. And frankly, Dirk, I've gotten asked this question a couple times, which is, how do
Oh,
you
I'm
make this leap?
disappointed.
How do you make this leap? No, I mean personally in
I
interaction.
know.
Like, how do you make this leap? Um, I would say I went into my career with an intention, and my intention was to be able to get to this CEO level seat.
Okay.
And I can literally say, truly, this was, back in my college days. This is the role that I wanted to get to. So it was not something that just kind of landed there. But what I did in my career was I tried to say yes to as many things as I could. And so what I mean by that is, at various companies that I was at, they would come around every now and then and go, "Hey, we've got a really big project that we need somebody to work on.
And you're like,
Who's willing to work on it?" And I would go, "I will. I
yeah,
will. I'll work on that. I'll work on that." And so while I felt like I was, a mile deep in sales, I was probably only an inch wide. And so I
yes.
thought, how do I continue to broaden my skill set while I'm deep in one area? The further that I can broaden it, the more valuable I will be as an employee, the more value that I can add into conversations and in decision making. And frankly, that's the things that I need to do in order to be able to get to that next level. So there's a um, uh, Scott Adams, the guy who did the Dilbert cartoon. He has believe it or not, he has a pretty interesting business book. And he talks about it in like layers of a cake. He said, so how you've got a skill that's at a layer. How do I build a layer on top of that and a layer on top of that? And he calls it talent stacks.
Yes.
So I kind of looked at it as inch wide, mile deep. How do I make it broad, or talent stacks? It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
And so I raised my hand to as many things as I could to try to build on my talents. And so I would say the first big leap was to be a GM within a much larger company, which means I got the full P&L ownership, even though, I wasn't involved in setting corporate policy or things like that. That was kind of the first big level, is getting that GM title. And then from there, it's another jump from a sales guy through marketing, through other things, up to a GM and jump up to CEO. And yeah, so I worked the plan. I was very diligent about trying to build those stacks every time that I got the opportunity to do it. And that's how I got to where, I am.
Yeah. I wonder, a conversation I have often with younger talent, so people in their end 20s or more, maybe more like early 30s, is should I go deep or should I go broad? And my answer always is, if you go deep in one space, this is going to be an anchor your
Yeah,
entire life.
yeah,
Because those who are broad, they can basically, say a smart thing or two in every aspect. I don't know, when push comes to shove, they can't go as deep as it's necessary. For example, when sales are down, they have one or two ideas. Someone who went a mile deep like you probably have 15 years worth of ideas what you could do.
Mhm.
So, and then, and I just wanted to paint it in a way. I think what you did is ideal because probably even today, I think in the first place, you're a salesperson. You're like, how do we get it over to the consumer?
Mhm.
And then you're the general manager.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think this is what I see in a lot of careers. I like the idea about talent stacks. So when you and I met a couple of 8 years or something, I didn't research it. It's been a time.
Been a while.
We're
Yeah.
inching on towards a decade. Um, what were the first really painful learnings as a leader coming in terms of this adding? What's the most no in your lingo? What was the most painful talent stack that you had to add? Because you
Uh,
came from the wonderful world of sales, which you knew.
Look, I think the most painful talent stack for me was managing up. I, I didn't. I would say it's not my strength, even to today. I would say it's not the thing that I do best. But I probably learned the hard way that managing up and creating the right expectations, the right communications, the right times to push and not push is a hard was a hard thing for me to learn. It may not be hard for others to learn, but that was a hard thing for me to learn. And I think it was just because in my mentality, I've always had drive. I've always
Yes,
had drive, and so I always just wanted to go, 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 and maybe didn't think about bringing other people along on the journey with me. And that is a key part of being successful is you've got to get other people on the journey with you. Nothing, or I let me change that to not nothing, but very little happens in one person themselves. It happens through a large group of people, especially in an organization. And so you've got to get other people willing to go down a path or a journey that you want to take with you in order for it to be successful. If you just plow ahead, those other people are kind of standing behind and kind of going, what is he doing and why is he going there? I don't understand this. And if they don't understand it and they don't believe in it, they're not going to buy into it. If you don't get others to buy into it, you won't be successful at it. And so a podcast that I listen to, Scott Galloway's podcast, he has this line that says agency or greatness is in the agency of others. And
yeah,
I think that that's an interesting line because there's an incredible amount of truth to that, which is to be great at something, you've got to get people to come along on the ride with you.
yes.
And
Galloway's got great lines.
yeah,
We're still working on this over here.
yeah, I don't have any great Galloway-ish lines for you, Dirk, but
No, it's perfect. That was great. That's a great line. I think I
hmm,
heard it before. I agree 100%. I'm in the change management space. So what you basically just described is, as you know, my business model. So or our business, how do you engage 5, 15, 50, 500, 5,000 people for a certain idea? And I know you've done this before, but I'm not talking about mini yet now, but in the pizza place, the pasta place, or the fruit place, where could you use that, or where did you develop that ability to take people with you? So what was the initial need and how did you do it?
here I will tell you the very first time that it had happened to me.
Please.
And it was at one of those times that I raised my hand. I was at the pasta company and they said, hey, we're gonna, they're on a really old, green screen, ERP system. Hey, we're gonna build this database, this big financial database, and we need somebody to kind of help us go down this pathway. And of course, I know nothing about databases other than um, hopefully I'm going to get the data out of it that I want out of it
Yes. Yes.
when I want to have it. And so I kind of raised my head, said, yeah, I'll do this. And so I started going down this path. And I had a guy that kind of was mentoring me on this. And he said, okay, Brian, after we talked through it, I kind of started to get an idea of how this thing would come together. And I started putting together kind of the product trees, how things would flow down, how they divide out, how you would do territories, how you do regions, how you would categorize products and things like this. Think about it as a tree, but upside down. So it goes upside down and then how it splinters down to all the little branches and things. So I had a concept on how to put all those things together for a database. And the guy, Kevin, who was mentoring me at that point in time said, "All right, Brian, you've got to go around and get every VP in the company to sign off on this as they get it and they understand it." And I was kind of like, why? It's the three or four people that have looked at it go, yeah, that's the way we ought to do it. And he's like, just trust me, you're going to need to do this. So I had to, book time, book, an hour a piece with, six, eight, 10 people. I don't even remember how many now, and walk them through this. And I would say, in general, most of them kind of went, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. And, I'll sign off on it that it's approved. Well, then we go in and we implement it, and people are starting to use it. And somebody in finance goes, wait a minute, why is this way and not that way?
Question?
And I said, well, because this is the way that we designed it. Well, I don't agree with that. And I said, yeah, you did agree with that. Because here's the paper that you signed saying, literally had their signature on it, said, I've looked at it, I've understood it, I've agreed to it. So there was a little bit of kerfluffle around that for a few moments until they kind of realized, okay, that was my responsibility for not asking those questions then. And frankly, it's
Yeah,
too
now
late.
it's too late. Yes.
And so that was the first time that it ever hit me that holy crap. Honestly, this was probably 2004,
Mhm.
21 years ago that I kind of realized, oh, crap, getting everybody on board is really, really important. Even though I wasn't, as a in a leadership role then, what I was doing was taking a leadership position on this product for the business.
Yes,
And
yes,
so, the mentor's advice of, "Oh, you got to get everybody on board," was really valuable because if I hadn't had, if I hadn't had that discussion, I think the outcome after it got in place would have been much more challenging than it was. Now, at the end of the day, basically what it was the old "Who moved my cheese" story, which was, they used to get it looking one way, and this report gave it to them looking at it a different way. And, people kind of like, no, well, I want to look at it the old way. So it didn't end up to be a big thing in the end, but at that moment in time, it was a big.
I can see that that is a big thing, and also as it's always hard, a young and upcoming talent or someone who makes wants to make a difference, talking to the senior leaders in the organization. It gives you visibility, and it can be a nerve-wracking process in itself because you have to pitch your story so many
Hmm.
times and convince people with diverging interests.
Exactly.
Finance has other interests than supply chain or manufacturing, and
Exactly.
you have to talk to all of them. There's a couple of things I wanna uncover. So first of all, the stakeholder management process.
Hmm.
And definitely it is, that's the one thing. But then, of course, you have those other maybe 50, 100, 500 people that also need to follow through. So let's say even the leaders aligned, Brian, how do you get everyone else behind the decision to, for example, have that database? Because a database is not filled by leaders. They don't touch
Exactly.
this thing. It's filled by everyday people.
Yeah, and so maybe I'll pivot to a different story on
Okay, this is also good. Yeah.
on that one, Dirk, which is, so I've been here at Miniat for 11 months now.
11 months now. Time's
Well,
flying.
no, 10 months now. Sorry. When I got here, we didn't really have a well defined strategy for our two companies. So we have two separate companies here. One that's in the sous vide cooked meat space, and the other one is in the oils, animal fats, and oil space. So they operate independently of each other, but together for IT and HR and stuff like that. So we didn't really have a well-defined strategy for each business. And but the thing that we did have is we had a set of values that the company had operated on, uh, and every meeting starts with, "Hey, how did we see values in action last week?"
Yes.
Which is a really cool thing, really really cool thing.
So values in action. So what would be a value and how do you see it in action?
Well, yeah, so, we're here to serve each other, our customers in the community.
Okay. Yeah. Make
That's an example of
it's
a
a
value.
value.
We play to win. We
Hmm.
make decisions and commit. We respect our heritage, but also, are continually moving forward. Those are examples of values that we
Yes.
have here. So anyway, when I got here, I would say the values had been around for a while, and going through the hiring process, one of the members on the board said, "Hey, you ought to look at that. Those values kind of came together, many, many, many years ago. We ought to take a look at it." And I said, "Okay, I'll take a look at it and we'll think about it." So over time, we decided, "Hey, let's try to refresh and relook at those values and see if they're still exactly right for our business." And so in the process of that, we changed them a little bit. I would say none of them were a revolutionary change, but a lot of them were an evolutionary change. So one of the old values was, we are a family.
Hmm.
And the family kind of wrote those values. And by the way, the values here were not abstract. They were not written by management, and nobody acted that way. This was really the way people acted. So when we changed that to, we are a team that plays to win, it felt much, much more inclusive to people.
Mm.
People embrace that much more than we are a family. Because I think what had happened is, when they wrote it as, we are a family 30 or 35 years ago,
It was a family
it
business.
was a
Yeah.
family. It was a family. It was a much smaller company than
Yeah.
what it is today. Well, at 1,100 employees, and let's say there are probably 8 family members in the business, six to 8, people kind of go, "We're the family, but that's a value for 6 of us or 8 of
It's
us?"
a good question.
They kind of didn't get it. So when we came out and started talking about these changes, and we said we've changed it from, we are a family to, we are a team that plays to win, everybody felt included now. The old value had felt a little exclusive. The new value felt completely inclusive. So that's a little bit of an example of the change. But more importantly, is we still start every meeting with that. Everybody, we start our meeting with our values. We start our board meetings now with our values, and my leadership team talking about how we've seen those values in action in between the board meetings. We're starting to get our board to try to share. We want them to kind of look at us and go, "Hey, this is how I see some of the values in action." It needs to not just be us, but we communicated those. We put signs up. I said, this is not something that you can do once. You can't get up in front of the room, announce it once, and expect everybody to buy it. You have to continually talk about it. You have to continually
Beat the drum.
beat the drum. And I'll be honest, Dirk. I'm pretty sure that I got this from you, which was, you told me to read the Jack Welch book. And look, I know Jack Welch today is a little, maybe a little controversial in some of his choices and decisions, and that's fine. But I think the thing that I absolutely love and took away from the book, or one of many things, was, hey, his job was to talk about his values and talk about his strategy to the entire company, not once, not twice, but hundreds and thousands. And obviously, GE is an infinite, or was an infinitely
Was.
larger company than we are today. But I think the point of the story was absolutely correct, is nobody gets it the first time. You hope they get it between hearing it and or seeing it the 7th or 8th or ninth or 10th time. And after that, they start, embodying it, because they see it, understand it, and it's a part of how we think in the business. So repetition, repetition, repetition. By the way, that was a 7-minute answer to give you repetition, repetition, repetition.
No, I think this is great. You said something very important. It doesn't matter if it's GE with, at the time it was 400,000 people, or if it's Miniat with 1,100 people. The the approach, the methodology of getting people on board is always the
Hmm.
same.
Yeah.
And I think what you just described is just because you broadcasted a message, people, not everybody might have heard it because they might have been preoccupied, they might have been on their phones. So just getting 1,100 people to hear it is a challenge. And then getting 1,100 people to understand it the way it was meant to be. So this is sender receiver thing.
Mhm.
That already is a great management challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was the goal here is when we came out and published our strategies, and each strategy has 5 points for our 2 businesses. People now kind of get it, and they kinda go, "Oh,
Yes.
that's what we're working for. I get it.
Nice.
That makes a lot of sense." And they didn't have that previously, or if they did have it, they only had it in pieces. And so my goal is, we're starting every meeting, with the values. We start our all employee meetings with the values and our business strategies so that we just repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And by the way, some of the repetitions for us so that we don't get attracted to the shiny object over there on the floor,
Yes.
because there's absolutely always a shiny object that can pull you away from
There is always.
whatever that key strategy is. So you just kind of, no, no, we decided that's not who we are. We're not going to go do that. Our strategy says these are the 5 things we're going to do. All right, let's get back refocused on. And I think it's been energizing. I think we've got a lot of people thinking differently today than they thought differently 8, 9 months ago about how they can help grow the business and contribute and can be a part of it. So that's fun. That's exciting.
And this is an open question, not a statement. It's not everything about energy. I mean, going full circle to the beginning of our
Yeah.
conversation. Why do I get up in the morning? Food industry, pharmaceuticals. Isn't it about finding that energy that makes everyone in the organization do what's right for the customer, make sure you have safe product, whatever it is? I think it's all about the whole idea of managing. Of course, there's compliance, but I think energy is where the value is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Dirk. Energy is where the value is. And I like to say CEO sometimes stands for Chief Energy Officer.
Ah, oh my God, you get down.
Seriously. I mean,
Did you just come up with that? I love it.
that's what you do. You kind of have to set the tone. You have to set
Incredible.
the pace. Look, everything's plagiarism, Dirk. I don't, I can't, I'm not going to claim that I invented that, but I'm sure I've read it somewhere before.
It doesn't matter. We just came up with it. I have my Galloway quote, energy is where the value is. And you topped it. You said chief energy officer. So here we
Yeah.
go.
So,
And off
you
we
know,
go.
yeah. So my goal is to try to set that tone, set the energy, set the excitement, and continually push on that. And, it's not always going to be sunshine and roses, but you have to tell people when it's not sunshine and roses, we can get through this, and here's how we're going to do it, and here's how we're all going to pull together to make that thing happen.
Yes, and I wanna and this is the last door that I wanna open today. And so you joined Miniat, it was family, and as we said in the introduction, you're the first non-family CEO. It's a
Hmm.
traditional you found a lot of traditional elements, like the values were old and everything. So what is special about being a CEO, being the first from the outside and stepping like into a legacy business? Because I think it's not the same as if they had 4 Bryans before you and they have seen a couple of leadership transitions. So what is the unique experience you've had in this 10 months with them?
Yeah, so I'd say there's a couple unique experiences, Dirk. So my prior 2 companies were turnarounds.
Yes.
And so I had to
Yeah.
kind of come in
Yes.
and try to hit the ground hard and fast, and a bit of a shock to the system, so to speak, in order to try to change that trajectory,
Yes.
try to bring different direction, different energy into the business. So I didn't have to do that here. This was not a turnaround. Things were, I would say, the previous couple of years had not been the best years in the history of the business.
Mhm.
Some of that goes back to COVID,
Yep.
a little bit of a hangover on that. But in general, we had a business that was working. We just needed it to function with more speed, with more decisiveness, with more action oriented and more proactive. And those are the things that I found coming in here was we had an opportunity to do those things better than we were. And like any company, when I say those things, we weren't bad at all those things. It's just maybe we weren't consistent with them. So, hey, we took a really, really long time to make a decision on this point. Well, why did we take a long time to make a decision on this point? Is it because we were waiting for perfect information? Well, guess what? Perfect information never
That
comes.
doesn't exist.
And by the way, if it does come, it's usually years after the fact.
Yeah.
And so it was trying to find those little areas that we could build on and be better. We had a lot of really good, smart people here that were needing some direction and needing that energy.
Yeah.
Again, not a turnaround, just a bit of a rejuvenation, maybe is a better way to look at it. A reinjection of energy, a reinjection of direction and strategy. And that's what I think, I tried to bring to the table. I mean, look, I haven't made wholesale changes here. I mean, we're basically the exact same team.
And that was not your mission as much as
Yeah,
I
it was not
understood.
my mission.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was not my mission. My mission was, hey, how do we improve this business? We think we got a pretty good business.
Yes.
And what I figured out is, yeah, we got a really good business. We got two really good businesses. We just have to get our focus better, our consistency and execution on decisions and things like that better, and everybody rowing in the same direction. And that's what I think I've been allowed to do with the work of my leadership team and everybody involved. And I think you know me, Dirk. I'm not a guy that likes to pat myself on the back and do that. And I don't, and I'm not doing that here. We had a lot of good things in place. We just needed to get everybody rowing in the same direction. And that's what I think I've been able to do.
Yeah. And the journey is not over yet.
Absolutely. The journey is not over
The
yet.
journey is not over. So and I when you mentioned turnaround has the ability to create this raw
Hmm.
energy in a way like if we don't get this right, we
Yeah,
might be all losing our jobs. And that creates a completely different momentum.
exactly.
Whereas what you found at Miniat is basically, make changes, hurt us a little bit because we need the nudge. If we go by that word, it's more like a nudge than a push.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, no, I do understand, and I think but the question is how you don't have access to that raw energy, like, if you don't do this, we're gonna cut jobs. That's the raw energy. Nobody loves, but it creates raw energy.
Yeah.
Where did you find the energy? Were people waiting for it? Or is because just don't get me wrong, I love the example of going from family to a team that wins, and on the surface, that's good, but where does the energy really come from? Is it pride in the business?
Yes. I like that question, Dirk. Thanks for that. The energy was always within the people. They just needed a nudge to
Connect,
unleash it
nudge.
and work in a
Yes,
unified direction.
yes.
And that's what I think launching the revised strategies out for the business and the revised values out for the business gave people oh, okay, here's where we're going. I got it. This makes sense. I like it. I can buy into this. For lack of a better way of saying it, maybe it's a little bit of hey, they got the purpose. They got the why back
Yeah.
in business. And that's where the energy came from.
Now, last question for today.
Yes.
You mentioned a big number of 35 years of career.
Yes.
What is the one thing you would tell, not yourself as a young Brian, but people today? Gen Z is just making their start into careers like you and I had, and they have the same lofty goals, many of them, because they want to make a difference, they want to make an impact. What's
Yes.
your message to that next generation? Because we'll be technically passing the torch to them.
Yes. Sooner than we expect,
So,
right?
oh, yes, I know. I
Yeah, I don't know that there's one thing. I would say I think there's a couple, which is you got to be gritty.
oh, yeah.
You got to be gritty. And what I mean by that is not everything is going to go your way. In fact, a lot of
A
times
lot of time.
things are not going to go your way. So, are you going to let the situation win, or are you going to persevere through it? And so I think you must persevere through it. The loss of the day does not define you. You define you. Your wins, by the way, also don't define you. Your wins can't define you. Your losses can't define you. You have to define who you are. So you have to be gritty. You have to fight through the things that don't go your way because there are going to be a lot of things that don't go your way. That's a little bit of the sales story too, resilience.
Yeah.
I remember, again, I'll relate it back to a book I read, and this one probably 34 years ago, which was a Zig Ziglar book. I believe that's where it came from. I may be misquoting it, but the gist of the story was most of the sales come after the seventh sales call.
Yeah.
Most of the sales come after the seventh sales call, and only 2 or 3% of the people are willing to do seven sales calls. So most of the people give up after one or two. That's your 90% give up after one or two. Another 3 or 4% go to four or five. It's the 1 or 2% that persist through seven sales calls that get the wins. And that has happened to me multiple, multiple, multiple times. I remember the very first time that I called on a retailer, and I won't say who it was, but it was, a retailer in the Southeast that was family owned. And I came in with this resounding story about cleaning up his category. And he literally told me that my sales pitch was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard in his life. 2 years later, I had the business.
Here we go. Because
So,
you were gritty.
and he was the guy that
Yeah.
gave you the business. And all of it went through the same guy. So if I let myself get pushed into the ditch when he told me that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard in his life, all that did was that made me more resilient. I was like, damn it, I'm going to show you how. Another famous quote is between an outcome and an action is a period of time where you get to make a choice.
Yes.
And so, is your choice, I'm going to let that outcome define me? Or is the choice, I'm going to be resilient and I'm going to figure out how to overcome this? Stimulus and response, that's it. Between stimulus and response, there is a space in time that you get to make a choice.
Yes.
And so make the choice. And your choice can be I choose to give up, or the choice could be I'm going to choose to figure out how to win. And I think my career has been I'm going to choose to figure out how to win because I've lost many times. I've won many times. The thing that I won't do is I won't give up. You're not going to intimidate me out of a situation. That's
Yeah.
gritty.
That's gritty. There's not just a single choice.
No,
Probably
it's
that
multiple
I
choices.
think that's important is and if you shouldn't dwell on it. Even if you made the wrong choice, you made a choice,
Yeah,
correct? And the next opportunity for another choice will come.
I tell that to everybody here all the time.
Yeah.
So one of our values is commit and make a decision and commit. I say, guys, you get another chance to make another decision tomorrow. Okay? Just because you make a decision today doesn't mean it's the only decision for your life on whatever that point is. You get another chance tomorrow. And by the way, nobody gets it right all the time. It's
No, I wanna see that person.
it's statistically impossible
It
for
is
you to make every decision right. It's not going to happen.
yeah.
So when you make the wrong one, you kind of go, okay, crap. Now I got to make another decision to try to fix the wrong one that I made, X, Y, Z days, years, months ago, whatever.
Brian, let me close this session. Couple of things I wanna say at the end.
All right.
So from his early days in sales to leading major organizations and now steering Miniat into its next chapter, Brian's journey is a testament to strategic leadership, innovation, and staying grounded, people, and purpose, and most importantly, being gritty. Brian's insights on growth and the balance between tradition and progress are lessons I think every leader might wanting to take to heart. And I think, Brian, you showed it's important to honor a legacy while still pushing forward.
Mhm.
The way it's possible, scaling, not losing the human element. I think we talked about this a lot. You have to get people on the board, stakeholder management, everyone else, and build teams that care as much about the craft. And I think this is the thing that you bring in, and also the customer. And I think for me, it was a sharp reminder that the real secret sauce isn't just the strategy, but the people who bring it to life.
100%.
Yeah. Now, Brian, I can't thank you enough. This was one for the heart.